All right, welcome to We Want Winners post Monday Night Football, 49ers and Vikings. 49ers did not disprove the haters who were running wild all week after they lost last week. They kind of leaned into some of the bad feedback for a little bit, but we're going to talk about the whole game, the bad, I guess there were a few good things. CMC continues to be just an absolute game breaker. But first, I want to do one shout out before we get started. So, Rod, this is a testament of me getting old here, which is I had injections into my knees today because I have arthritis in my knees, and I'm eventually going to have to get both of them replaced. But we're put with their Doc Matal, who I saw this week and last week, and he is a 49er fan. I told him about our feed, so just in case he decided to check in on our audio, though if he did not, being a 49er fan and after watching this game, I would not blame him, but just wanted to shout out Dr. Matal. We're trying to get my knees back in shape, so we're both on the same page there. And I have to start really with an apology because last week, one of our listeners who chimes in on the YouTube stream, Davis, aka Drip, who was at the game in Minnesota, he said, "I'm not afraid of Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is not someone who will beat the Niners." And I kind of made a joke about it, and I was like, "Yep, you're right. Not scared of Kirk either." We got to put some respect on Kirk's name tonight because, dang, he was good. He was tearing up that entire defense today.
Well,
shout out to Kirk
about
Cousins.
A tape that didn't age well.
No way. And here we were saying we're like, oh, we have our Kirk Cousins. We got in Brock, and he outplayed Brock, especially in that fourth quarter. But
wasn't he something like 2-10? On primetime game, so
yeah,
he
saved
stepped
it all.
up, and yeah,
I did some, I do the midweek, or now it's sort of like a preview now, the little mini episode that I put in the podcast feed where I just kind of go over the injuries and stuff. And I was doing my research and looking at like the Vikings writers. They were so down on this team. They were just like, without Jefferson, and they're kind of disappointing here and there. And, O'Connell's supposed to be this offensive wizard, and they're not really doing much. And they barely beat the Bears, who didn't even have Justin Fields. It was kind of like a setup. And I was like, man, I think this game is going to be a lot closer than even the Vikings writers think. And I wasn't going to pick against the Niners. The Niners are clearly more talented, but they had a great game plan offensively. And this is kind of where I want to start, because I'm really interested in your feedback here. If I was to kind of summarize this game, if I was to come up with my pitch about why the 49ers lost this game in the fashion that they did, I would say they are way more reliant on the front four to dominate than I actually realized, because the front four today were dominated. Randy Gregory came the closest to getting a sack, and should have been an intentional grounding of some sort. But other than that, there was a couple of close situations, especially late. They kind of sandwiched him, and he still got the ball off. But because that front four was being dominated like they were, Wilkes was trying to blitz to create some sort of pressure to maybe create some chaos, and it came back to bite them at the end of the first half. And I'm still unsure why he blitzed here. Again, want to get your feedback. But they finally score. It's 10-7. They're about to go into halftime, and Minnesota has something like 16 seconds left. The Niners blitz. Mooney Ward looks like he's got an interception again. He's playing tug of war with the football with Addison, and Addison just pulls it away from him and scores to end the first half. And my instinct was, what the hell was Wilkes doing blitzing there? They just kind of needed to kill the clock. And then I sort of realized, like, oh, he didn't want to be, their defense didn't want to be down 2 scores. They didn't even want to give up the field goal. And so they were being a little aggressive, but it's because they didn't trust the pass rush without having to blitz, and they just kind of got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. What was your feeling about kind of the how did this game get away for the Niners?
100%. You know, I was going back and forth with our constituency on Facebook during the game. And everybody is, you know, they're talking about Wilkes and, you know, how the game he's calling, when perfect case in point is like you just said, he decides to blitz instead of playing coverage at the end of the second quarter. Well, why does he do that? Well, if you look at the third quarter, how was playing coverage working out? Because we could not get any pressure at all with the front four. So, I mean, he just picked his poison, I thought, and he tried to be aggressive. And, you know, he's a Mooney Ward making a play to having it work out. We could talk about the blitzers not getting home. I thought, to me, the game was won on the lines of scrimmage, and we just got worked on both sides of the ball. I think we talk about, you know, there's a narrative going around 49er land that we're overworking CMC. I don't see how you take him off the field. Do you really believe that those other dudes are equivalent to him as a player? He's the best running back in the league, and quite possibly our best offensive player. No disrespect to Brandon Ayuk, but I just don't see how you take him off the field. I mean, he is such a difference maker that I don't think that is the narratives. I mean, it's ridiculous to me how all of a sudden, now that, you know, 2 games, we go on a 2-game losing streak. Now all of a sudden, Wilkes being in the booth is a big problem. Like Kukurik and Johnny Holland, they were fine the first 5 weeks running the sideline, but now all of a sudden, you know, this is a big, huge problem. Again, we got firsthand witness of what happens when Trent Williams is not on the field. It really makes a difference. He cleans up a lot of, you know, he puts deodorant on a lot of that stuff. And, you know, what was interesting to me is, you know, you could always kind of, you know, if you need to get 3 or 4 yards, you can always kind of run behind, you know, Banks and Williams, and be pretty sure that you know, if Trent's going to win. And I think having him on the same side kind of helps Banks be a better player. But that just was not the case today. And I concur that we just got dominated on both sides of the ball, and that's where it started. You know, I knew we were in trouble when Alexander Madison is breaking off big chunk runs, which just doesn't happen to the 49ers. We don't have anybody. You know, if there's one thing that's for sure is we're going to be able to control against most teams, we're going to be able to control their run game. But, you know, the Vikings, you know, they had it just about whatever they wanted on offense, it was what? It was like damn near, I know it was at least 400 yards. Well, Kirk Cousins damn near had 400 yards all by himself.
Yeah, Cousins had 378,
so
and the running game had 74. So they had 450
so
some odd yards.
425.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that I can't remember the last time. Well, I guess it was the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Last year around this time that a team, well, throwing out that the Eagles game, that doesn't really count. But it's been a long time since a team has done us like that.
So here's another thought that I had as I was watching this game, which is you really it is amazing to me how a team like the Chiefs, how the Brady New England Patriots, how the 80s and early 90s 49ers, you could even take the Cowboys from that time frame, though those teams were just so much more talented than all the other teams. The ability to stay on top, because I wish there was a way to measure this, but after the first 5 games, Niners go 5-0. You see that game on Sunday Night Football where we dominate Dallas. And in my head, I thought, well, everybody is now going to really, really dig into the tape to find out, okay, what are some of the things we can do to slow Brock Purdy down? And to me, what Minnesota did, and I don't think it's that different from what the other teams are doing, is they just go, okay, we're going to try and stop the run, and then we're going to give Brock the opportunity for us to to beat us. And I'm not saying that was necessarily the best game plan or whatever. And maybe it wasn't even the game plan. It's just what I can see on the television. They were not going to let McCaffrey run for 100 yards today. They just were not going to allow that. And so what happens is Brock is getting back, and for 3 quarters, I thought Brock played some pretty darn good football. And then late in the game, they just relied on their ability to get to him, rush him a little bit. And you saw both interceptions were on. I'm not even sure that he needed to throw those balls at that time as far as the pass rush is concerned. It seemed like that was just the play that he wanted, especially with the first interception in the fourth. He threw it a little bit too early for Jennings, and then that safety was just sort of sitting. He was almost like he was just waiting for this is the ball I've been waiting for all game long. I'm just going to sit in this spot. Brock's not throwing over the top of where I am, and that's where I'm going to sit. And then the last play of the game for the Niners, Brock has to step up a little bit. And he was doing something that you and I have been begging him to do, which is use his feet. And I thought he did a great job doing that. But then he makes that ill-advised throw, and Rick called it out in the chat right now about basically what I'm going to say. Brock turned into Jimmy G in the fourth quarter. And this is the stuff that we would get on Jimmy G about, which is when it's time to make a play, more often than not, the defense could move him and make him not make that play. And that seemed like Brock in that fourth quarter. He turned into Jimmy G, and it was just unfortunate because, like I said, I thought for 3 quarters, Brock had himself a pretty darn good football game, missing Debo. I don't know. Who knows how good CMC really was. I mean, he was playing his butt off, I thought, for being injured. Trent not being there, we felt that. I think they tried to run to that side one time, and Christian got drilled for like a -3 yards or something. So not to make an excuse, everybody's missing their guys. Minnesota's missing Justin Jefferson, who's one of the best receivers in football. So I just think now everybody has at least somewhat of a resemblance of a game plan that kind of sort of works against the Niners. The Browns showed it last week. Minnesota showed it this week. And really, it's up to Kyle and company to figure out the offensive piece But more so, I literally don't know what the problem is with the defense. And you talked about the narratives. The reason the Steve Wilks narrative exists is because deep down, you don't want to admit that Bosa is not able to get to the quarterback for whatever reason. You don't want to admit that Mooney Ward on an island, they were kind of picking on him. You don't want to admit that, Hufanga is excellent when he can, when he's in the box and he's stepping up to stop the run. But if he's not hitting on those blitzes, it's like, you got to hit those or else we're one guy in coverage less. And they just didn't get there. So all of these things is to stay. When you are on top, you are on that pedestal, the only place to go is down. And all of these teams look at the Niners and they go, we want to be where they are. And they're doing their damnedest to, put a chink in that armor. And 2 weeks in a row, not only did they get outplayed, but I just feel like the other teams just had a really good idea of what they needed to do to win. And they were able to put that game plan in and follow it. And the Niners didn't really do anything, especially defensively, to stop it. I mean, to lose to PJ last week, there was some fluky stuff involved, but Kirk looked like the best quarterback in the NFL tonight. And some of that was their defense. We know who Kirk is. Kirk is a good quarterback in this league. He is not all pro. He was all pro tonight.
Yeah, well, I think it simply comes down to your initial point. If you don't heat somebody like Kirk Cousins up, we saw it earlier this year. We didn't end up losing that game. But if you just sit back, if you let Matt Stafford sit back there without anybody in his face, he's going to throw for 400 yards. I mean, and Kirk Cousins is another one of those kind of guys that if he's not worried about you hitting him, you're going to be in for a long night. So, yeah, that is a problem. And that's what I saw. I'm no defensive schematic guru, but it just felt to me in the moment that we weren't getting any pressure with all four, and with the front four. And as a fan, I would, I don't want him to just sit there and get us killed, death by 1,000 paper cuts. Plus when that is his forte anyway. He is an aggressive play caller anyway. And it just seemed to me that, it just made sense to me that we're not getting it done with these, with just the front four. And we talk about our coverage if you want to, but again, it's just the defense from way back is just not set up to let quarterbacks sit back there for 3 or 4 seconds. We have to get pressure for this whole thing to work. Our team is just not built. We're not the Ravens. We don't have 4 guys back there that we can put in man coverage and just lock people up. That's just not what we do. And if we're not getting pressure, it's a problem. So he attempted to get pressure, and oftentimes we just didn't get there, which again is, I'm low to like criticize coaches for because ultimately I think the dudes on the field decide what happens. And I didn't see anything that, and you rarely see in the NFL, in my experience, see coaches just putting their teams in horrible positions based on their play calling. That, I didn't see anything tonight that I said, wow. Even if all 11 had played their responsibilities perfectly, we didn't have a chance to win because of the scheme or the play that he called. I could point to on every play. You could point to 3 or 4 places where guys just didn't do their job. And ultimately, I just think that's what football is those guys, they Now sometimes coaches don't necessarily put their teams in the best position to win, but I don't think he, set them up to fail either. I thought he called, and I'm one again who believes that it's good to have somebody dispassionately making decisions, because defense can be such an emotional it can be such an emotional thing. And from what I saw in training camp, Holland and Kokoric do a very good job of getting those dudes fired up. I don't see that as an issue. And I didn't really even see that in the game, that I felt like, oh, these dudes just look flat. That wasn't my read on it. I saw a bunch of missed tackles. I saw a bunch of coverage breaks. And then I saw dudes that could not, hold guys off on the offensive line, and dudes that weren't getting off blocks, on the defensive line. It's those are the things that I think we need to address before we start blaming the coaches. It has to start with the players. I think that's just how I see it.
The Niners have an issue with whoever's on the other side of Bosa still. From what I understand, obviously it's not something we can see, but I don't know if it was Barrows or Kawakami or Mayoko. They said that in the beginning of the game, Drake Jackson was just getting manhandled. And so I think they just literally just took him out of the game. But, with this trade deadline coming up in a week, we'll see what they're doing. They already got Gregory. I saw him, kind of moving into the inside a little bit. But he's a little, not that he's a small man. He's obviously not a small man, but they were able to handle him, except for that one where he just used his athleticism and his speed to get inside and to get close to Kirk. But the pass rush isn't there. The other thing was, and this is what was so smart about Minnesota's game plan, knowing that the Niners were going to be a little bit over-reliant on the blitz. All of a sudden, they're pulling out screen game. Utilizing the Niners' over-aggressiveness against them, screen. They even threw this one had to come back, but they threw the wide receiver pass, the wide receiver screen. There was some really deep and long play actions that Niners kind of had to pause on, and then he was able to sit back there, deep in the pocket and sort of figure out who he wanted to throw with. So I just thought, man, football, I know it's just this big chess game, and I know it's just, you got to be one step ahead of the other team and stuff. But I just wanted to, give kudos to the Vikings for just taking advantage of what the 49ers couldn't do, because when you cannot rush a passer and Wilkes is a blitzer, they were figuring it out when it was happening or right before it was happening and calling the perfect play to beat a blitz. I just thought, man, I can't even be mad. Like, these guys are just figuring this stuff out as the Niners are not, and the Niners are a half a step behind. So, they got to clean that stuff up. And offensively, I couldn't tell, was it the crowd noise? Like, what was up with the delay of game stuff where Shanahan's having to burn timeouts? Purdy's getting up to the line and they're snapping with 1 second left. I'm assuming it was crowd. The crowd sounded pretty loud, but it didn't sound any louder than a normal away game. But yeah, Shanahan, you see him again, those 2 weeks in a row where this dude is just yelling at people, stomping around, frustrated. So something's not happening right in that huddle for what he wants. And I know his, I gave this long sort of, narrative or pitch about what I thought was wrong. Shanahan was quite short with his 3 turnovers and a missed field goal. There's your game. That's all he said. So, I mean, that you could also say it like that. The CMC fumble when they looked like they were going to score another easy touchdown, and then the 2 interceptions, and then Money Making Mitch, or not Money Making Mitch, Jake Moody missed, not a not very hard field goal, though he did make a deep one when they needed it. So, yeah, those are missed opportunities. And I guess if you are Shanahan and you are thinking
10 points.
Offensively, if you're thinking offensively, that's money that should have been in the bank. And because of the errors, they weren't. And maybe that's just the way you look at it. You don't look at the, giving up 450 yards to the Vikings. You look at it as like, yeah, we played poorly and we should have still won the game in his eyes. So it could be, maybe it is just as easy as that. But if we just said that, this podcast would have been 5 minutes long. So we have to find something else to talk about. All right. Another thing, and I want to get your thoughts on this. When it comes to the deficiencies of a season, now when you and I got together in the off season and then during training camp, we said, okay, here are the things that we're a little bit worried about. Having a rookie kicker, the secondary a little bit, and this offensive line depth. I think all of the teams who play against 49ers go, okay, here are their deficiencies: rookie kicker, offensive line depth, and secondary. And man, those got exposed even worse, I thought, in this game than in the Cleveland game. Do you think, can some of those things be worked out just during the season, or do you think they're going to have to make some moves to shore up some things before this trade deadline?
Yeah, I don't see how you fix the offensive line without bringing in better players. I just, you're going to get Trent back, which, like I said earlier, puts a lot of deodorant on a lot of stuff. I mean, he is just that impactful. But other than that, the right side is just a problem. And at a certain point, I just think it's foolhardy to think that, Burford is a talented dude, but he continues to just, it's like he has some kind of brain lock or something where there's times where he just gets beat in ways that don't belie his physical talent. People shouldn't be just running over the top of him the way it happens. And I understand those guys are athletic as well and they get paid as well. But at a certain point, the question has to be asked, is he just not good? That's the question. Mm-hmm. And then McKivitz is kind of like what was advertised. He is an upgrade over McClinchy as a pass blocker, but a 2 steps or 3 steps downgrade as a run blocker. It's just, and again, he, like Mitch, in a way, he's a really big dude that is just going to have a hell of a time with speed rushers. It's hard for those dancing bears to, if a guy lines up, 2 yards outside of him and I'm just going to try to run past you. It's hard for those dudes to kick step and get back there. It's difficult. So I don't know if they can fix that part. Then you get into the question of how much are you willing to spend if you want to go out, talk about somebody like Danielle Hunter or Brian Burns, who I still don't believe those dudes. Obviously I believe they could help, but I just look at the way our cap is structured. I don't see how those things would be anything more than rentals. And then the question becomes, how much do you spend for someone who's going to be here for 3 months? When, I don't know, maybe I'm completely off base, but it just seemed to me at the time when they cleared that $40 million in cap space, the fact that the numbers almost matched up identically, where we now have this overage this year, and we have this shortfall next year, it just seemed to me that those moves were made to give this group a 2-year window to open up that, because that was the question during training camp, was that we're going into next season in a very dire cap situation, and decisions are going to have to be made. Well, they made the decisions to Jed put up the cash, and he paid dudes a bunch of bonus money, and they cleared that cap space so that now we're good with this team. I mean, obviously, we could be in a position, if he wanted to play hardball, we have to extend IU. But if Nick is any indication, the 49ers are willing to just let him play out, or go into his 5th year. So that's not even a huge issue. So then the question becomes, like I said, if you go after somebody like Danielle Hunter or Brian Burns, I mean, I think those are the two things that are realistic. I steadfastly believe that a package for somebody, if Patrick Surtain becomes available, I just don't think we can. I think there are other teams out there that can put together better packages than we can, because even if the 49ers decided, I believe, that they were going to go all in for him and give up the first round pick, because I think it's going to take 2 or 3 first round picks and then other stuff to pry him away from the Broncos. Because I mean, he's on a rookie contract. They just keep him. He's a 23-year-old all-pro player on a rookie deal. You're going to have to blow them away. They can just keep him. They're under no, they don't have to trade him. So you're going to have to blow their doors off. And I just don't think, because even if you look at a team like the 49ers, if you think they're going to be good, their first round picks aren't even really that good. Especially if you think about, and you talk about this in the NBA a lot, where when you trade for a guy like Patrick Surtain, you are devaluing those picks that you just acquired, because he's going to make the team better. So, you see that in, like I say, the NBA is where you see it a lot, where when you trade, a superstar player to a team for a bunch of picks. I mean, those picks have to be way far out for them to even make sense, because, if I trade Damian Lillard to the Bucks, guess what? These near-term picks aren't going to be very good, because they're going to be up towards the top of the league. So yeah, I just don't see that as a viable solution. But those pass rushers, I'm sure they can be had if the Niners are willing to put enough chips on the table to do that. But are they really in a position to then sign those dudes? I don't see it. So then again, like I say, the circular. So we're talking about a rental, and how much do you I get pushing all your chips into the center of the table if you believe that this is our best chance of winning. Then I guess you say screw that cap space for next year if you can do something that demonstrably makes this team better. But as we see, F them picks is it's a slippery slope. And again, if you win a championship, I know that's something Brian Windhorst says all the time, that if you win a championship, everything is worth it. And he's probably right.
Yeah.
So I guess it just depends on when they self-scout and take a good hard look at their team, they really believe that we can't get where we want to go unless we make one of those big moves. Because you see, Philly, they seem to be all in.
Yep. They
They
had a
brought in
taste last
Julio.
year.
They brought in, I mean, they brought in the cat from the Titans, the safety from the Titans. They are effing picks, it seems like. So I don't know if we believe that if they believe it's an arms race, and if they have to make a big, we obviously Lynch, we saw last year, is not scared to do what he feels like he needs to do to improve his team. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't even know if those two guys. I know Brian Burns is good, and Danielle Hunter is having a great season, but I don't know if that is just contract year situation or what.
Who did he beat? Who did he beat on the Brock sack? Because he blew by someone. They only rushed 3 guys, and he got the sack.
It was the right side, so I couldn't see whether or not he was lined up outside McGlinchey or if he was in the gap over there. But it was either Burford or McKivitz.
I want to say it was McKivitz, because at least the guy who was trying to push him after getting beat was a white dude. So I think it was McKivitz.
Yeah.
He
looked really good tonight.
He'd be great, but if you're the Vikings and you just beat a team that a lot of folks kind of think is one of the best teams in the league, and you've kind of moved your record up a little bit. You're now 3-4. The Lions have kind of showed that they're not superhuman. The Packers and the Bears within your division are probably not going to do very much. So if you're the Vikings, maybe you think you do have a shot to
then that takes the Niners. Is there a gamesmanship type situation where you want to extract a huge premium to trade him here? Even if you decide to, like you say, or you look at the top of your division and say, I don't, or for real, and then what do we gain by trading him at that point? We might as well just go ahead and ride the hot streak that he's on and just keep him.
So the Niners are now 5-2. Their counting stats still look really good at 5-2. They've still only given up 109 points in the 7 games. And when it comes to the rest of the teams in the NFC, only 2 teams have given up less than the Niners. That is the Cowboys, and that is the Buccaneers. But those teams have only played 6 games, and the Niners have played 7 games. So still, from a points against perspective, at least in the NFC, they look fine. And from a scoring perspective, they are still the leading scoring offense, points for in the NFL. So if you looked at it that way, you're like, man, it shouldn't be too terrible. But after these last 2 games, I think Niner fans probably feel a little bit like, was this a little bit of a mirage? Are we really as good as we were? Are we really as bad as we've been the last 2 games? Here's what I'll say, which is the Bengals come to town. Now, I think were the Bengals on a bye this week?
Yes.
The Bengals were on a bye, so they're going to be. I think they were. I'll look it up here in a second. But if you are,
yes, because that was a factoid that somebody had put out there that like 3 of the 4 next teams that the 49ers play are coming off of bye weeks. So yeah, I think they were.
And you have an opportunity. You're back home. You are undefeated at home so far. And you need to take care of business for sure. The Bengals are always going to be serviceable because of who they have behind the center. and because of Jamar Chase. But you need to win that game. I mean, this is at home. You're coming off of 2 terrible losses. You kind of need to rewrite the ship. You got to win that game. And then you yourself are able to be on bye. And then the next game, the very next game after the bye, the Jaguars, the 5-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm gonna put an asterisk by some of the some of the Jaguars victories because they get to hang out in London. These teams got to fly up there and play them. That's not really fair. It's like the best home field advantage of all time. So, yeah. But that is, if you're the Jaguars, you're like, oh, we actually have some success. What if we are as good as the team who was in the NFC title game last year? So it's all about these teams are going to be, puffing out their chests and seeing like, can we play with these guys? And, if we upset these guys, then all of a sudden that tells us we're the real deal. So some really good games coming up, and I'm circling November 23rd because
absolutely
Seattle doing what Seattle does, 4-2 right now. They won again this week. They beat the Cardinals, not impressively or anything, but that is going to be a test to me to really prove who, when it comes to the toughness, because, we've been saying, oh, they're just tougher than Dallas, and then they beat Dallas. And then you get out toughed 2 weeks in a row, and you're like, okay. And so it's really, you got this week, you got the bye week, you got the Jaguars matchup to tell me how good is this team, because the game I'm circling is 2 weeks after that Jaguars game, which is the Seahawks, because it could be a game that has some elements of, meaning something in that division, especially if we, as we go into the middle of the season.
That's a tough stretch. We get Seattle, Philadelphia, Seattle, 3 weeks in a row. I don't think it's too much hyperbole to say that that's our season right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't see how we can, again, I guess that, like I said, I know it's hyperbole as I'm saying it, but coming out of that stretch 2-1 or 0-3 would be disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about, again, which we talked about, I know we talked about it in the preseason, that if I had to choose, the last couple of years we started off like 2-3. If I had to choose, I'd rather start off 2-3 and then be getting better as the season rolls on than to start, 5-0 and then 5-2 and then have a 3-game losing streak heading into December. That, that's like the worst case scenario is to be trying to right the ship, headed into Christmas. You want to be playing your best football. You don't want to be sitting around trying to figure stuff out at that point of the season. So that's going to be a huge stretch for us. Yeah. And then, obviously at 4-2, Seattle's feeling frisky, I bet. So, that's going to be, and then the Eagles, of course, that goes without saying. That's going to be another league-wide marquee matchup. So, yeah, we've got a lot of work to do, and it really is going to be interesting to see what Lynch thinks, if he believes that that the team that he has built is good enough, or if he thinks he needs to go out there and make another, seismic move, and again, somebody like Brian Burns or Deion Hunter is not, that's a different scale of move than, swapping picks to get Randy Gregory. Mm-hmm. I don't think that kind of deal, I don't think that kind of draft capital gets it done. Honestly, you're not going to be able to, again, to me, it doesn't make any, why would Carolina just give Brian Burns away? If there are no cap repercussions at this point. That money is gone. He's a free agent at the end of this year. They paid him, they've paid him. The same thing with Hunter. I checked. They're not going to realize any huge cap benefit by trading him. So then it comes down to if they decide to do it, it is an asset play. So then, these teams aren't here to be our feeder teams. Mm-hmm. They are going to try to make the best deal possible for them. And I just don't know. I mean, are the 49ers, do you trade do you put a first round pick on the table for somebody like Brian Burns? And if you're Carolina, is a first round pick from the 49ers, is that, do you value that the same as a first round pick from somebody? Pick a team like the Cardinals. I mean, I know the Cardinals aren't trading, a pick at the top of the draft, but you know what I'm saying? If it's somebody who is a middling team, why do it? But then it becomes like, if you're a middling team, why you wouldn't do it unless you think that kind of move puts you over the top. I guess a team like Seattle, or pick a team. The Eagles, I guess. I mean, they're strong on the defensive line, but the Jaguars, those type of teams, who might think that they are just a player away. Those are the type of teams, I mentioned them because those are the type of teams that the 49ers are competing against to make an offer that is going to, trump their offer. So I think the trade deadline this year is going to be really interesting to see if these teams are really looking to move off those players. It kind of makes sense for a team like Carolina. I mean, they could use draft assets. It doesn't make as much sense
because they don't have a first this year, from what I understand.
No, because they traded. Yeah, that's right. They traded their pick to the Bears.
So yeah, they're probably trying to maneuver some stuff if they're going to get rid of one of their better players. Okay, real quick, Rick had a question about if we were surprised that CMC was active. After I heard last week, it was last week when they sort of diagnosed him in the midweek, and they said it's just sort of pain tolerance, like that's what the injury is for him, is pain tolerance. And I said, okay, he's definitely going to play. And I mentioned this in my little preview episode in the podcast feed, which is, how would they use him? And, would they kind of use his gravity a bit to open up some other things? And I think that definitely happened. I think he carried the ball and he was used a lot more than I thought he was. Like, I thought we were going to see a little bit more of Mitchell. And Mitchell, did he even get a carry? I don't even think he got a carry in this game. So, Shanahan was 100%. At one point, I think Joe Buck said that CMC had played every offensive snap of the game, which was, and now Rick, I was surprised about that. I thought they were going to utilize a little bit different two back or whatever, and maybe try and see if they could get a little inside run game going with Mitchell. But maybe it was just because they knew that the other team knew that their offensive line was going to kind of be a fraud in this game without the best player. So maybe that had something to do with it. There's always games within the game, and like I said earlier, the chess matches of why. If I had a press pass, I would have probably asked Shanahan, was there an idea to use, your other running backs to get to get CMC off the field a little bit and to change up the offense a little bit? But obviously he thought that was the best way for them to win the game, was to have Christian in the game the whole time, or else he wouldn't have done that.
I just don't think that those other options provide the versatility that Christian does. And I think that with Debo out, because Debo does.
Yeah.
Debo, if you spell McCaffrey and you put Debo back there in the backfield, it's the same thing. I mean, you have created a matchup problem that teams have to account for. I just don't think, I don't know. Mitchell just has not looked right to me all season. He just looks, you said it on several occasions, and I think you're right. He just looks slow.
Yeah, he looks really
So
slow.
so I don't, and I'm not willing to just give up on him because we've seen it before. We've seen it where guys come back from injury and then it takes them, a full season to come back and be their old explosive selves. So I'm not like saying we should just move off of him, but I think it is clear at this point that TDP and JP do not provide the team with the versatility that Christian does, which I mean, obviously he's the best player in the league, but I think it just like with Mitchell to a lesser extent is that when you put those dudes back there, it's like you're almost like you're tipping what's going to happen. They're if you're putting them in there, you put them in there to run the ball. That and that's it.
Yeah.
So you can especially if you're not dominating guys up front like you're not when Trent is out there. Unless so you decide, when Trent is, all right, we're gonna run them. But guess what? We're gonna run to the left. So you know what? There's probably nothing you can do about it.
Yeah,
so
I was thinking
so
like
yeah.
a previous Niner offense would go, yeah, we're gonna run, we're gonna run, and we're gonna do it anyways, just because that's kind of how we
Yeah.
set everything else up, and that they don't
That was
really
Jim
do that anymore. Yeah.
that was Jim Harbaugh's whole thing is that this is what we're gonna do, and
Yeah.
you're try to stop us. And between guys like Staley and Potty and all those guys, and then you put Frank Gore back there. Yeah, it's good luck. I mean, even if you know what's coming, good luck.
Exactly. All right, last thing here before we get out of here. Honest assessment of Brock Purdy here. 2 games in a row where they do not come away with a victory, and in some part because of his play. Now, I think today he was much better than he was last week. Even Shanahan said, really it's only that first interception he threw that he thought was just, a bad throw or whatever. But otherwise, he thought he played really well. The timeliness of those interceptions were pretty poor, though. So ultimately, where do we sit now here? 5-2, obviously much different than 5-0 and beating the Cowboys on national TV. You and I have the benefit of not thinking that Brock was the next coming, the next one coming. Not that I wasn't hoping that was the case. There's just certain things that I see from him. A lot of air underneath his ball today too, interestingly. But it didn't hurt them because he was so accurate. But after 7 games, 5-2, I think at the beginning of the season, we would have taken this and said, yep, I love it. Let's go. 5-2 after 7. We're in good position. Where do you sit with Brock right now?
Look, like you said, I have, I never thought I've said all along that I think comparisons to Brady and Montana are absolutely ridiculous and unfair. So I didn't have those expectations, and also I didn't believe that he was going to go undefeated in his career and that his passer rating was going to be 103 for the rest of his career. So those weren't my expectations, and I thought Troy made a good point about with a guy like Brock. He is so reliant on timing and anticipation that if he is off or the receiver gets rerouted, he can, that's what happens. Like that first interception is you can get some really bad looking throws if anything is off. If the receiver is not where he is expecting him to be, or so, and you just that's something we can never know. We can never know if the receiver is wrong or the quarterback is wrong. But if he is not right, you end up throwing it directly to a defender. So I didn't really see, there was nothing that, I didn't think he was terrible. He definitely was way better than he was last week. He was just bad last week. And I don't think that I don't understand why 49er fans have such a hard time saying that. It's not, I don't think that it's a referendum on him as a player.
It's not an indictment of, oh, this is just a fake thing by saying that he played bad last
week. He was
week.
Just bad. He was bad. He was objectively bad. But the weather, the pressure, there were lots of reasons for why he was bad. But the fact of the matter is he was bad. I don't think that I thought he was much better this week. I love, because we've talked about this previously, I love the fact of kind of trying to unlock him and have him be a threat with his legs, because he clearly has the aptitude to do it. But again, I think we kind of sussed that out a couple weeks ago, that it probably does make, while he could probably do it, there's no doubt he can do it. Yeah. But is the juice worth the squeeze? Do you want to put him in a position where he's taking hits as a runner? And you probably don't, because I'm not raising my hand. I don't really want to see Sam Darnold play personally.
Yeah.
So if we have to keep Brock under wraps and keep that part of his game under wraps until we get to some more higher leverage or higher stakes situations, then I'm all for that. But I thought that this was a game, and he got that big long run early.
Yeah, 17 yards, I think.
I just think that we're kind of leaving money on the table, not considering that more. But I also I'm of two minds. I don't really, because it would suck if he were to get hurt again, rushing the ball. But again, I say I'm of two minds. Hell, he's a football player. He could get hurt in the pocket. Yeah. So if you think that, getting him out on the edge and doing some, RPO type stuff where you don't even have to run, like you see with Patrick Mahomes. Here I am comparing him to one of the greats. But when you see with Patrick Mahomes, he rarely runs with the RPO stuff. He has it in his pocket, and he clearly can do it, but it just opens things up because you have to honor the run. You have to honor the fact that he can run, and oftentimes what happens is linebackers come up and, they create voids, and guys are able, and I think that is definitely that could be a part of Brock's game, is that if you're creating openings by rolling him or having him threaten he did that today. I don't even remember if he completed the pass, but he kind of threatened the line of scrimmage and then threw, and it was like, that's perfect. Those are the type of plays that I'd like to see more of and to explore more of with him, just to, Kyle does an excellent job. I'm saying Kyle does an excellent job of, and here this will be a criticism, in the wrong hands of giving him excellent looks. I mean, he really, really does a good job of defining, Brock's reads and giving him defined places to go. And that's not to say that, when you couple that with Brock's anticipation and timing and accuracy, it's just like a perfect, it's like a match made in heaven. I just think that, man, I said it already. I think we're leaving money on the table by not exploring that more.
I agree with you. One of the things that a good offensive play caller is going to do, he's going to play to his quarterback strengths. Thankfully, in this case, his quarterback is good at processing information quickly and generally making the right decision. And Kyle's game planning helps him make that decision because he just gets guys open. Sometimes guys get so open that, and we saw this with Jimmy a lot too, which is you go to that first read so quickly because it's there. And sometimes there is a guy who's even more wide open down the field, but you're just so like, this is where I'm going with this throw. So,
and he's not, like we used to say, I used to always say with Jimmy, he's not wrong for taking that, that found money. He's not wrong for it, but there were times, we've talked about it before, there were times when he would take that money, but you'd have guys running free, Jennings, and I can remember a couple of times with Kittle, where they're just wide ass open in the end zone. But Jimmy had already made up his mind, and I don't think that Brock is that kind of player. That I think he can. I think he is such a good processor that he sees everything. He just makes determination. And he does such a good job of just playing within himself that it's that's why that first interception, I just he does such a, not to say that he can't make mistakes. I have a tendency to believe that Jennings got rerouted and he just wasn't where Brock was anticipating him being. Because we just have not seen Brock make just horrible decisions with the football. He usually is right on point and he knows where he's going with the ball and he knows where everybody else is supposed to be. So I have the tendency, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt on that first one, that somehow, and I'm not faulting Jennings, because Troy said that it looks like Jennings got rerouted. He was trying to get somewhere and the defender made a play and kept him from getting to the spot that he wanted to get to. So, I mean, that's good, just good defense.
Yep. All right, last thing, and this is a little cheeky, but I think I figured out why Bosa's off to such a slow start. He is one of the male models in Kim Kardashian's new I think it's called Skims, her underwear line or something. All of a sudden, I'm on Instagram, and I see a shirtless and pantsless Bosa on Kim's page, just wearing some tight underwear, some tight boxers. I don't know, man. He's signed that big deal. Now he's hanging out with Kim K. I love Kim K, by the way. She figured out how to make her money. But
I don't hate on Kim Kardashian, but the Kim Kardashian curse is real though. So I hope
of course Shelvin knew. He said his wife is telling him.
I hope he's just a spokesman and it's not anything more than that, because the Clippers can tell you about how the Kardashian curse is nothing to fool with.
Anybody remember Miles Austin? Anybody? Miles?
Yeah. Although, I mean, Travis Kelce has leveled up.
Oh, yeah.
And
did you see Taylor Swift and Patrick Mahomes' wife trying to do like a special handshake in the booth? And
yeah. Oh my goodness.
Let me give Taylor a little bit of advice here. You're gonna get the benefit of the doubt on the lack of rhythm with that handshake. Just ask LeBron. Like, LeBron is the master of the handshake. You'll figure it out. You'll get a good one, and you'll be good. Yeah, because
15 teammates, 15 different handshakes.
Exactly. Yeah, you can be off rhythm and miss each other and do all that stuff the first time, but you got to clean it up for the next time. We expect you to clean it up. All right, we're done. We're done here. Unfortunate. Last two podcasts have been a little bit. Rick is mad at me because I'm a fan of Kim K. Kim K has, she's just been around for a long time. I'm not mad at her for her success. She figured it out.
I respect her hustle.
Shout out to Ray J.
And Chris
Humphreys. It sucks that these last two games we've had to be a little bit more negative, but at the same time, if they were just to win all of these games and they build up this kind of suit of armor, and you're not sure where the difficulties or where the negativities are on the team. And in this case, like what Rod was saying earlier, I would rather have these issues now than, as we get to week 14, 15, 16. So it is something that, if Shanahan and the coaching staff, part of this season of being great is also for these coaches to figure out some solutions to the problems as well. So I'm looking forward to this weekend to see if they could bounce back. Joey Burrows is not going to be easy on them. Jamar Chase is not going to be easy on them. I'm sure they were watching this game very closely going like, I think we can do that. So it's up to Wilkes and the crew to kind of, be ahead of that and know how you are going to be attacked. And that's 2 weeks in a row where I felt that, the other team was very ready for the 49ers and everything they were going to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll be back. I will have a midweek or probably on Friday, a little preview with the injuries and stuff. And then just a quick update on what is going on for the rest of this week. Brad and I will be back Tuesday evening on YouTube. The audio will be up Wednesday morning in the podcast feed, talking about the Giants' search for a new manager. Could be Bob Melvin, former Giant. Also, Bruce Bochy, former A's manager. Bob Melvin was on two of my favorite Giants teams ever, 1986, 1987. He was Bob Brenly's backup. And so we're going to talk about Bruce Bochy getting back to the World Series. It was Bruce Bochy and Dusty Baker. I couldn't really root against anybody. I wanted to see both of those dudes do well. And we'll see. I know Shelvin is.
I hate the Astros. I love Dusty Baker. So it's a conundrum.
Yeah. For Shelvin, he wants to see the D-backs get to the World Series. So that is Game 7. That will be happening as Brad and I record. Diamondbacks and Phillies, Game 7, I believe. And then Tuesday night, Warriors and Suns. Brian and I will be back live on YouTube Tuesday night after that game. Unfortunately, one Draymond Green will not be playing. He's already been ruled inactive. So we'll see what happens. Who's going to guard KD? I really don't know. I'm not sure we would have guarded him all that well, even with Draymond there, because KD is just a problem. And then that will be the week. And then Rod and I will be back next week after Bengals 49ers. So for Rod,
one moment. I don't normally do this, but if you guys believe in energy or prayers or whatever it is, my little transplant evaluation is tomorrow. So anything you can do for your boy, I would really appreciate it. Because I want to get this organ. So, look out for me when you hit your knees at night or whatever.
Lay it out. What's the deal right now?
I'm at you. I do my, I've got kidney disease, if you guys didn't know. So I do dialysis 3 days a week. I'm listed at UCSF in the Bay Area, but their wait list is like 8 years, and I'm like 6 years on the list, so it will still be another 2 years. The wait list down here in Vegas is like 2 years. So with time served, I would like go right up to the top of the list. So I go tomorrow and I meet with the surgeon and all the people, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks I'll be like listed, and then my nephrologist is super, she is super positive, and she's like, you could have a kidney in like 6 to 9 months if everything goes well. So from her lips to God's ears. So again, I'm super excited and kind of nervous, but yeah, I've been through this before, but you just, there are never any guarantees. But I've worked on my health, and I'm in like the best shape. Other than my kidney, I've never been in better shape. So I think I'm an ideal candidate. So we'll see. So wish me luck, y'all.
All right, you are in our thoughts. Send some good juju your way, and good luck with everything, and keep me updated. So
Yep.
I want to know what's going on, and yeah, that's on a game like this where the team just doesn't look up to snuff. I'm glad that we can end on an optimistic outlook like that, because we are rooting for you big time here. All right, for Rod, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.